Today I'm going to show how to use the Security Content Automation Protocol, SCAP, SCAP, whatever you call the tool, to scan your machines in your infrastructure to get compliance information on how secure your machines are to meeting the compliance standards of DISA. If you go to public.cyber.mil STIGs SCAP, the link is right here, and you scroll down to the very bottom, the SCAP tool is available in many different flavors depending on the operating system you want to run it on. In today's video, I'm going to go over using the Windows version of the SCAP tool. Above there is content that can be imported, benchmarks, which benchmarks are basically config files to scan against your machine to see if it meets the configuration for that particular product. In this case, Adobe Acrobat or Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, Windows 10, and if you pull down the Show menu, you can extend the listing so you don't have to page through them. When you download the Windows version, it's a zip file. I extracted it out, and inside of that zip file, there's an install for Windows. You can run that and install the product, or there's also an additional zip file further under. If you extract that, you can copy that entire directory to a drive, and underneath there, everything that would be installed is inside of that zip folder. For this example, that's what I did because I didn't want to install the application. I just want to be able to run it and not have to put more entanglement into my operating system. So with that, I have it expanded here, and there's this SCC executable. I'm just going to right click it, and I'm going to say run as administrator. It takes a while to launch based on your operating system, the amount of CPU and memory you have. It's a Java-based application, so it takes just a moment to launch. Once the application launches, one of the things it does is it goes out and it looks for new benchmarks. I pointed that out on the website where you could download them, but the application will actually reach out and see if there's newer benchmarks. So the first thing that I do when I get the application is I look at the benchmarks and I check the boxes of the particular benchmarks that I want to run against my machines. If you have the benchmark checked and that product is not installed on a machine, it will not scan for that product by default. The next thing you can do is on the left-hand side, choose a type of scan. You can do a local scan. So I have this machine. I have the application available on that machine and running on that machine. And I could just simply click local scan and then say start scan. Very simple, easy to use. In my case, I want to do multiple Windows hosts. So I want to remotely scan multiple Windows hosts. If I go in there, now I can turn around and I can say I want to go in classic mode or I want to do WMI. The difference is with classic mode, it's going to reach out to each machine individually, scan it, complete the scan, pull back the results, and then start the second machine. That can take a long period of time, but you might have systems that are very slow, don't have a lot of resources, and you want to do one machine at a time with the scanner, but it will take a lot more time. I'm going to choose WMI, which is going to reach out to every single machine in my list, and I will show that here shortly. And you can go through and you can scan them all at one time. So it's going to connect to all of them, put a remote agent on it temporarily, conduct the benchmark scans, bring the results back, clean itself off of that machine, and provide you with the information you're looking for. Now, I'm going to do it with a host file because I don't have a domain here, but you could actually go in and say select OU or select the entire domain. That's if the machine you're running it on is connected to that domain and you have the permissions and rights to Active Directory. So then it's create and select a Windows host file. This will say 0 by default, and then you would say create a Windows host file. I've already done that, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to edit my Windows host file. It shows you how to use it. Anytime that you put a pound sign in front of something, it's going to make it where it is not used. So it's a good way of making notes to what you're scanning. In my case, I used it to notify me, let me know that in my file, these are my server IP addresses. These could also be server names, host names. And I could also say these are my workstations. So I can scan two different groups, but if I look at my host file, I know what those groups of machines are. Then I would hit save. You can say show scan output. I don't really care about the output. I want to see the output after it's all said and done. If you go into the options menu and then show options, you can configure your scanner how you want it to work. When I talked about the fact that it would only run the SCAP scans that are applicable, there is a way to check a box to run all SCAP content regardless of applicability. I would not recommend that, as those results wouldn't be useful. but there is that option. You can force oval results. Oval's not used much as a standard. The XCCDF and the SCAP results are what are normally used. And then you can save results that are not applicable to SCAP 1.3 interoperability if you're using an older version of SCAP content. You can also ignore rule version changes when upgrading manual questions. There's a way to go in and generate templates for filling out some of the results automatically, such as this is a non-domain connected machine, and so these certain vulnerabilities don't apply, and you can create templates for the SCAP tool to use to generate that. The big one that I find that's useful is output options. By default, this is going to save it to your user directory. It's not something I like. So I actually put a path into a folder that I've created of where I want the output results to go, both for the security compliance configuration directory options. I want them saved in my output folder, or maybe I want to save them to a different folder, and then where I want my results to go and where the output of those are. There's also a bunch of checkboxes here on creating subdirectories. I tend to avoid creating a lot of subdirectories. I just want all my results in one single directory. I don't want to have to click down through 5 different directories. To give you an example, it could create a session subdirectory, and then it could create a target name. So for each machine, it will have a subdirectory, and all the results for that machine will go into that directory. The SCAP content already knows what host name it is, so I just don't see a purpose for creating a target name subdirectory, but in some cases, some people may want this. And you can also do content name subdirectories, which would be the content of each of those benchmarks. So there would be multiple subdirectories under the target name subdirectory, and so on and so on. One other interesting point is content options. You can disable older versions of matching content, so you're using the latest and greatest versions when they download. And you can also use a preform XML schema validator on input files during installation. This is just to validate them and make sure that they are going to work with the tool well. Last thing with scan options is at the bottom, WMI, use alternative credentials. If all of your machines are not on an Active Directory domain, the scanner will use the logged in credentials for the machine that you're on using those credentials you logged in with that machine. So if my account is ABC and my password is 123, it's going to use that account name and that password to connect to all the machines. If you want to use a different account, you can go in and view, edit your alternative credentials. It will ask you to create a password, which I already have. I'm going to go ahead and put the password in. That's a master password for these credentials so that they're encrypted and saved and protected, at least with a password locally. And then you can put in different credentials for each of those systems. In my case, I didn't need this, but I set up 4 of them to use alternative credentials, which are the same credentials I'm logged in with this machine. And for the rest of them, I just left it as is. You will see that during the scan, it will still connect to all those machines with no issues. And then you can say start scan. So I'm going to go ahead and start my scan here. What it's going to do is it's going to say, hey, I'm going to scan all your machines for these benchmarks. I'm going to say continue. And down here, it's going to do an NS lookup for all of those IP addresses since I didn't use host names. And it's going to find the host and find the information about them. It's going to prompt you for a credential password. That password is set on your host file so that not anybody can go in and use your scanner without having the master password. So I'm going to say OK. And as you see here, I had 4 servers and 7 workstations that were in my host file with the IP addresses of those machines. It's found out what the host name of those machines are. It's now connecting to those machines, sending the SCC remote scan tool to those machines. I'm doing this with administrator level account. As you can see, what I'm connecting with is an account on that machine. And this is a way of connecting to all those machines, scanning all your machines remotely, and getting those benchmark results back to your local machine that you're running the scanner on, so you can take that information and start locking down your machines, or at least seeing what the residual results are on your compliance standards. Once your scan is complete, you'll have your results on each of those machines. If it failed, it will tell you it failed. If it finished, it'll tell you how many results it has. Then it'll give you a review of those results. Just click the OK button and your scan is done. If you close that window, in my case, I changed the path of where it saved the results. So if you go into that directory, of wherever you're putting the results, there will be a sessions folder. If you go into the sessions and then the date and time of your scan that was conducted, you will have your SCAP results under the SCAP folder, and then underneath of that, it actually took the SCAP results and put them into checklists for CKL files. These SCAP results can be viewed with an HTML browser so that you can read what your results are. Under XML are the actual SCAP results files. These will be the XMLs, and you can use those to create your own checklists if you want to. So this is how you can use the SCAP tool that is free from DISA to scan your machines remotely, even if they aren't connected to an Active Directory domain.